very different series that Chitranjali, through the Center for Policy Studies, has started, Impact Talks. So a very hearty welcome and a special one for our speaker of the session, right? So I think she will be introduced by Chitranjali formally. She is the CEO, as she said, of Anthill Creations. So let me take a minute to add to what Chitranjali mentioned about Center for Policy Studies. But before I do that, to help Madam Roy to understand that this is fairly a young university, but young definitely in terms of age, but in terms of its contributions, it has made its presence felt all over, not only in the country, but some parts of the globe as well. Uh, we came into being, Pujaji, in around 2011, and it's about 9 years we have completed. So next year will be our a decade of excellent existence. So we started with two institutes to make our presence felt in terms of teaching, research, learning, consulting, so on and so forth. And the two institutes were Institute of Engineering and Technology and our Institute of Management. Last year, to be precise, 2019, we started another intervention through the Institute of Design. So all these institutes are producing, grooming, nurturing professionals for the country, professionals for the globe, right? So we offer undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, as well as doctoral programs in all areas of design, engineering, and management. So each this Center for Policy Studies, which Chitranjali is talking about, is an official organ of our Institute of Management, right? And this is the most recent development at the university. In around February, this center took a final shape. And as she said, this is basically to promote, facilitate, encourage dialogue on issues that matter to the nation at the policy level. So it has intended to act as a think tank for all those planners, policymakers on issues and concerns which touch across lives of people, right? So it did start with a roundtable, and I'm sure Chitranjali and her team are working on making a document out of that. And similarly, we had recently another interesting workshop. So the idea is to solicit through such interactions and many such interactions and activities of the center, any kind of insight that would be of use and relevance, which can be put as a policy paper or a policy perspective to the government on various issues that are of interest, particularly in the development space, right? There are many other areas, but we are just to begin with looking at these areas. And the genesis of organizing this talk is because our Institute of Engineering has started a series which we call as Industry Luminary Series, right? Whereby top people in the industry are invited to share their insights and experience with our students and faculty all across. We have another series which is by the university. We call it distinguished lecture series, where people cutting across subject areas, domains, do talk to us as to what are the various upcoming emerging areas that need to be discussed, deliberated upon. Our Institute of Design has also come up with, signature series where people who have excelled in a particular domain do talk to us, our faculty and students, on various areas, predominantly in the area of design. But it was heartening to hear people in that series also talking about sustainability, talking about water crisis. So this is what is the purpose of engaging seasoned and accomplished people like you, Ma'am Rai, to let our students know as to what is the world of one area or one expertise. So, not taking much of your time, extending a very hearty welcome to uh, Pooja ji on behalf of all of us. We look forward to your session on social entrepreneurship. I know, as I said, our focus is development, but since we are looking at also development from the three institutes that we have put in place, engineering, technology, and other areas. So we look forward to your insightful words of wisdom on the topic that you have chosen to deliberate upon with us, our faculty and students, right? Thank you so very much. Chitranjali, over to you. Once again, a very hearty welcome to the speaker on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome and explaining the purpose of the center and the series that we are about to start with today. So, once again, I welcome you to the first session, and I am Chitranjali, an associate fellow at the center. And in this series, we are inviting inspiring leaders, practitioners, and researchers in the development sector who have done exemplary work in their area of expertise. The purpose of hosting these talks is to inspire students from multidisciplinary backgrounds, from science, engineering, design, public policy, economics, to innovate, learn, and make a positive impact on the society. I encourage the audience today to make our session highly interactive, which is the purpose of having these talks. And we basically aim to create a platform for policy dialogue and thinking towards innovation. So today's session, as you can see, the title of the session is Social Entrepreneurship, and we have a very special guest inaugurating the first session today in this series. A phenomenal person, innovator, and leader, Ms. Pooja Rai, CEO and co-founder of Anthill Creations. I met Pooja at IIM Bangalore in 2012 when she was writing her first book on women entrepreneurs called Road Not Taken. And since then, I have followed her work. I have followed the great work she has done as a woman entrepreneur and had a huge impact in the lives of several children. Pooja is an architecture graduate from IIT Kharagpur. She's a TEDx speaker, a Ashoka change maker, and has been awarded by Nobel laureate Mohammad Yunus. She will tell us more about her journey once we start off with the session, how she moved on from being an architecture graduate at IIT to become a change maker and a social entrepreneur at Anthill Creations. Before I ask Pooja to take it over, I'll briefly introduce the organization that she's co-founded. Anthill Creations, for those who are new to it, is a social enterprise incubated by NSRCEL IM Bangalore, supported by Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. In this virtually advancing world where everybody is running behind coding and computers, even small children are running behind laptops and mobile phones, Antil Creations is one of those rare initiatives that is bringing back play by building playgrounds, and that too using scrap tires waste material in the most sustainable way possible. It aims to make plays accessible to everyone by building low cost and sustainable playscape. Starting as a pilot project that explored using industrial waste to build a playground in IIT Kharagpur, Angel Creation has touched the lives of around 1 lakh children across 18 states by building total around 270 playgrounds. I once again welcome Pooja to taking out this time to speak with us and inspire our students through her journey. Just to let you know, as I mentioned earlier, we have students from very diverse backgrounds here, from economics, data analysis, architecture, design, and engineering. And I cannot think of a better person than you to kick off this series. I now request you to take this opportunity to tell us more about your stupendous journey so far and the journey of Anthill Creations. I now request you to unmute yourself and, yeah, introduce yourself and your organization And more importantly, like, how did this happen? And then, as in, and I'll ask you more questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chitranjali, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, Vice-Chancellor Sir. Good evening, everyone. So glad to be here. It's an absolute honor to be talking to all of you. I think I am very early in my journey. So what I'll do is I'll probably give you a brief about how I ended up starting Anthill Creations and where we are, what has been some of my learnings while doing it for the past few years, and then we'll open it up to questions, because I don't know what you guys want to talk about, so we'll keep it interactive and make sure we make the best use of this time that we have. So yes, I am Pooja Rai. I'm from Lucknow. I studied architecture in IIT Kharagpur. Uh, in my second year, I realized that I don't want to design buildings. I was not interested in, building walls. And that was a point when I started thinking, what do I really want to do with my life? And could not get an answer till the end of my college, to be very honest. In my third year, got an opportunity to write the book on women entrepreneurs. And the most exciting part of that was just to meet these entrepreneurs and know their stories and their journeys firsthand. I was not that much of a writer, and it was, I think, eye opening for me, because entrepreneurship from the outside looks very fancy. You have these certain misconceptions that to be an entrepreneur or to start an enterprise, you need either a lot of capital or you need to be a super genius. But I think all of those myths got broken while I was talking to these entrepreneurs. One common pattern that I found in the story of each of these entrepreneurs that I met was that they all came from very humble backgrounds, very average, I would say, scores in colleges. And yet, what differentiated them from everybody else was the strong willpower and the passion that they had for the problem that they had picked up. Many of them came from very difficult backgrounds, did not have support from their families, and yet nobody complained about those, and they always said that yes, problems will come on the way, but we found the way to solve it. So I don't know if my book inspired anyone else. It definitely inspired me on that journey. And but like, I knew that I have to start something of my own, but I still wasn't very clear as to what my passion is. Um, when I was in my final year of college, I used to visit this school for underprivileged children, where we used to go to give sweets and clothes. And in one of my visits, I saw that children were playing with those broken cement pipes. They were using slippers to play badminton. And I just spoke to my friend that these children don't even have a playground. Can we, as architects, with the knowledge that we have gained in these 5 years, build a playground for these children and give them this happiness that they deserve? So that's how we ended up building our first playground. We were students, we didn't have money, so we thought, let's get a few tires together. So the first playground we built was completely DIY, where our friends came. And when I was building that, never thought that it'll become an organization or that I would be building playgrounds as part of my career. Um, uh, Ended up, of course, it was not even a project. It was just one of the things that we wanted to do before we graduate. Um, so ended up joining as a product manager in Bangalore as part of the placements. Um, because I didn't have, there's a lot of peer pressure, especially I think when you're in IIT, like there's sort of expectations that everyone has from you. So I think in all of that thing, I was not really able to like find out what my calling is or follow uh, my dreams. And in the next 1 year, while I was working at my job, we got hundreds of requests from all over the country asking us to come and build similar playgrounds. And that is when I realized that this is such a huge problem. I think as a society, we don't even realize the importance of play. There's so much focus right from a very early age given to classroom education, but I think especially for children in the early years, play is very important. It not only helps us in our holistic development, helps us learn 21st century skills, makes us the adults. It improves us as a society. And one of the stories that I heard that time was this research that Dr. Stuart Brown was doing. He's the founder of National Institute of Play. And before he started studying children, he was studying prisoners. And one of the common pattern that he found in these prisoners were that when they were children, they were deprived of play. So that is the amount of impact that not having access to play can have on children. And I believe that every child deserves a happy childhood. And that is why after a year in 2017, quit my job to take this venture full time. Um, it's been 4 years since we've been building playgrounds all over the country. Our larger mission is that every child should have access to play. We build these playgrounds. We've built close to 300 playgrounds across the country in 18 states. We built one in Nepal and one in US as well. And it's been an amazing journey of ups and downs. Um, I think the most challenging year was the first year. When we started out, we did not know a lot of things. I had only 1 year of experience, and we wanted to build a scaled organization when we had not even worked in a scaled organization. But I think what really helped was the incubation that we got from IIM Bangalore in our early days. That gave us access to the mentors, the initial grant that we got, and also the access to the entire network and the ecosystem of startups. So there's a lot of learning that happened, a lot of collaborations that happened in that center. And it's so amazing to see like a university is hosting sessions on social entrepreneurship and development sector. I think when I was in college, there was less, these things were less talked of. And I think there's a change happening, and there are more people who are sort of inclined towards social entrepreneurship and the entire development sector. When we took this venture full time, there was not a single incubator for nonprofits, and there were 3 new incubators which came in that year. So I think it was a very, very right time and a positive change that happened. I mean, call it serendipity for us, or I think just I think this. I mean, we were just finding ways how we can move forward. So yeah, I think first year we built a few playgrounds, got the product market fit, and since then I think there's been just no turning back. We've been supported by close to 60 companies, and in the last 1 year, I think we were basically developing our program, putting processes in place so that we can scale up. COVID and the entire lockdown, which led to schools closing all over the country, definitely slowed us down as well. And it made us also question that we exist to create impact. And here we were when the world is in really difficult crisis. So as a response to that, we started with COVID relief work in Bangalore, where we had access. And very soon we realized the problem that children are facing because of the lockdown. They have so much energy in them that they cannot sit inside the house, and they could not come outside. Especially children from low income communities have absolutely no other way of learning. They do not have digital devices. School was the only place where they could learn. So we came up with this new product. We're calling it Play in a Box, which are basically games designed by sustainable material. And each of these game caters to the certain development in a child. So there are 6 games which caters to physical development, social emotional skills, gross motor skills, creative expression for a child, so that even if the child is not going to the school, this kit which we give to every child, which has self-learning games, can help the child keep their curiosity alive. Um, yeah, so that happened, and we got initial support for that also from some of the companies like Salesforce, Intuit, and KPMG. Now we are at a stage where we are basically building these playgrounds not just in government schools, but also transforming cities and making them more child friendly and more playful. Especially in metro cities, you see with all the infrastructure development, there's very little opportunity for us to go out with our families, play for children. And that's when we started talking to the government, and we basically picked these dump yards or dead spaces in the city under the flyover spaces, and transform them into community spaces and play areas for children. So we have already transformed quite a lot of places in Bangalore lakesides. We're working with Bhubaneswar Development Authority to make the entire city more child friendly. We are also trying to work with the Indore as part of their smart city initiative, and also working with Andhra government. So I think it's a lot of uh, very soon we also realize that we do a lot of work, a lot of action on the ground, but the changes that happened at the central government level, at the policy level, impacts us as well. And it is only when government organizations like ours and community champions come together is when real change is possible. So that's what my journey has been so far. Happy to talk more about the products that we have or any specific questions that you might have.
Sure. Thank you, Pooja. And I had this one question, which it might seem like an interview question to you, but as like I'm asking on behalf of students who would like to become social entrepreneurs or have some idea in mind, and what was one challenging like the most challenging project that you have come across in the last 6 years, and why do you think why do you think it became challenging, and how did you and your team work towards solving the problem and making it happen eventually? So if you can just throw light on any of your experience that you think might has a lot of nuances to it and can
Right.
just yeah.
Um, Actually, that has never been asked to me before. Like, a lot of people ask me challenges in the journey, but nobody has asked a particular project that was super challenging. So, um, taking just some time to think. So yes, I think one of the most difficult projects, which was also a lot of learning for us, was this project that we did in Orissa, in a very, very remote geography where there was no access to road. We had to take tires through boats. So it was almost, and somehow, like in our budgeting, we had budgeted for that project equal to what we budget for, say, in a Bangalore school, in a Bangalore project. So right from finances to safety perspective to the difficulty that we had in building those, just reaching that place was so difficult. Um, I, I think the first challenge was just reaching that location was like just very difficult, unsafe, right? Like just how we had to reach there. And after going there, I think we were not able to speak the particular language. Typically, when we work with such different geographies, we always have local partners who help us, but that's not something that we can expect in every geography. There was a point when the team just wanted to give up and say that in this much effort we can build 10 playgrounds, say in Bangalore or Delhi. And that's when, as an organization, we had to question ourselves that, one of the core beliefs that we have is we want to reach out to the most needy people, the most vulnerable people, and we should not back off from difficult times and challenges. So yeah, I think we went ahead. We sent one more team member from Bangalore to make sure that playground is complete, and we are building with the same organization. We're building more playgrounds this year as well. So Yeah. Actually, there's one more example if you have time.
Yeah.
In our very initial days, we were building this playground where we went and I don't speak Kannada, so I did not understand. But I later got to know that the headmaster basically was not willing to build the playground there. He said that if you build a playground there, my children are going to be distracted. I want them to focus on studies. And I felt there was something very disturbing about this mindset that we had. And we ended up building the playground because the sports teacher convinced the headmaster. And in 2 months' time, we saw the same headmaster propagating to other schools as well that you should have similar playground. So we saw that change happening, and that was very, very positive for us because even today, a lot of people come and tell me that Pooja, you should maybe solve a bigger problem or pick up something more serious. I think we don't realize the importance of play that it has in our lives, and that is what we're trying to change as an organization. And we can't do it by showing research papers to the people. It can only happen by showing impact on the ground. So yes, those are the two challenges that we've been really struggling with.
Thank you, Pooja, for sharing. And one interesting thing that comes to my mind, because it's very unique to your organization, is that the biggest and the most important stakeholder for you are the children. So how do you discuss, or how do you collect their interest, their yes and no? So whenever we as a policy analyst or policy maker, we draft policies, we talk to so many stakeholders, but most of them are like big old adults, and they they know what they want. So how do you deal with such young stakeholders, and how do how your team manages negotiating or talking to them?
Right. That's a very interesting question. So we we keep child at the center of everything that we do, and right from the idea stage of the designs to execution. So when we actually started building these playgrounds, we saw that the only thing you see and that hasn't decades in our playgrounds are the slide, seesaw, and the swing. So we went to children and played games with them, did a lot of activities, because if you ask straight questions to children, you will not get the answers. And we did a lot of these sessions with children to understand what their perception of play is. And some of the playgrounds designs that you would see on our website, right, like the elephants, horses, rocket, car, many of them have come from children's drawings, like what they wanted in their playground. So there was this one child who said that I want to slide from my classroom to the playground, or I want like a pool in my playground. So they have like these amazing ideas. And when we as designers take that as a challenge and actually make playgrounds from those ideas, the happiness that you get in children's eyes, right? It's very, very different. So that is during the initial design idea stage. Even while building the playground, we do encourage and involve children in painting of the playground, because if the children have invested their time in it, they take high ownership, they take care of it in the long term. So we involve community and children in building these playgrounds, also because they are DIY. It's easy for us to do that. And the final stage is when we go back to these playgrounds after a year for feedback and our impact measurement and analysis. That is, I think, the most difficult part. Children will not tell you if what they're liking, or the only data you can get from them is which one is their favorite element. But to actually get information from them, I think initially we had to struggle a lot. Now I think we've realized that we need to spend time with children first, get them comfortable, and that is when we get like say any information and feedback, true feedback from children. So yes, it has taken us a while to understand how to work with children, and it is a little more difficult than working with adults, but that is not something that we can escape. It's a choice that we made.
That's very interesting, because that's one kind of stakeholder that I've never come across in any of my projects that I've ever handled. The other question I have in mind, so apart from benefiting, like the societal benefit that this is doing to the children and to the mindsets of people, around the importance of playing outside, let's get the angle of sustainability into this. So the idea of procuring raw materials like, waste tires, and the other things that I read on your website, how you procure all the waste materials that are sort of disposed by industries, and then you use it to create. So how did that come about, and how does that procurement process happens for you? So that entire, like, you can talk about how did this idea of using these materials come up, and now when you have scaled up so much in 6 years, what are you at, what level is the sustainability going on, and how are you doing it?
So honestly, I think we ended up using tires in our first playground because we didn't have money. And we wanted to use something that's easily available, which is inexpensive. Sustainability is something that comes very naturally, I think, to us as designers. It's just ingrained in us from the very beginning. So when people say that, using tires is an innovative thing, to me, it feels like a very common sense, right? Like if there is a material that you can reuse and end up building something which is much more durable, much stronger, much safer for children, why not? So yes, we ended up, we used tires in our first playground, but even after 6 years, we continue to do that and use more industrial waste. Because of the quality that we have seen, right? Tire as a material is very safe for children because there are no sharp edges. Um, uh, it's also very, very durable because it is meant to take tons of load of trucks. It lasts easily for 10 to 20 years. You will not see a lot of wear and tear happening on the playgrounds in the tires. So I think all of these things made us choose tires as one of our major materials. We've also used cable drums, oil drums. So when we talk about waste, we typically just see the waste which are around in our houses, the plastic waste. But what we are ignoring is the large amount of industrial waste which gets generated. Like if you just look at tires, there are 981 million tires that get that gets generated every year, and even less than 7% is recycled. So there's this huge need of recycling this material, but what we're doing, I feel, is just a drop in the ocean. The larger, I think, difference that using reuse material, that's larger change that it's creating is for children, right? Like we've seen in our playgrounds children coming to teachers and saying, this is the 3R concept that you taught us. And they're seeing something right in front of their eyes, that how you can recycle something to make something which is much more beautiful than the normal playgrounds that they see around them. It's also very colorful, very different. The way these playgrounds are designed is we have very abstract design, which leaves opportunity for children to use their imagination and creativity in the playgrounds. So we might think of one way to play in a playground, but children will come up with 100 different ways. So that's what makes these playgrounds unique, and why we continue to use recycled material. We don't limit ourselves with that, but we try and use as much as possible sustainable material and not harming the environment. We also use a lot of local material, so we've used bamboo extensively. And if there is in Orissa, we ended up using some old carts that they had. It also brings a very local theme to the entire playground, and also you're using something that is lying as a waste. So those are the two reasons why we've been doing this. You asked about how we procure. So we've collaborated with certain tire companies, which give us tires, but that is only for a few of our playgrounds. We typically buy these tires from scrap markets and scrap dealers because we use truck tires a lot more than car tires. Which is difficult to sort of collect in a city and then build a playground. So that has been our sort of procurement, but we procure it from the local market, and it's a material which is available everywhere, right? Like not just in the India, but like everywhere you go, there are vehicles and there are tires. So you've never faced problem to get that material. Chitranjali, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, so we have a question from one of the students here. She is doing the postgraduate diploma course in data analysis and research, and maybe she came across this on your website, and you also mentioned that the COVID had. I heard you saying in one of your speeches actually that necessity is the mother of innovation, and COVID is one of those situations which has led you to think in a different direction and bring play back to indoor playing, but still using different aspects of development of children. So her question is around the play box that you spoke about. So she's asking, you mentioned the play box. What exactly goes into it? How were these selected? How are you reaching the kids with these play boxes during the pandemic? Yeah, so that's one question. You can talk about it, and then I'll ask you the second question she has.
Sure, thank you.
And just 1 second, if Mahima, you can unmute yourself. You can also, like, if I didn't ask your question correctly, you just feel free to unmute and ask your question.
No, that's correct. I've also posted another question, and yeah, after maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. Thank you, Mahima, for that question. So yes, you rightly said, right? Like when the pandemic hit, our playground projects all came to a halt. We had half-built playgrounds, and we had to fly down the team back because safety was the utmost priority at that point in time. And we started sort of we've been very close to the communities, and while we were doing COVID relief and giving people groceries, we also asked them how they're doing. And one thing that came as a pattern was our children are stuck inside, and it's very difficult. They have small houses. Most of these people have small houses, and we've always seen children or children or even families staying outside. In if you have ever visited a slum community, people spend a lot more time in the common areas rather than inside their houses, and it was a difficult time for, I think, everybody, but especially I think people coming from low income communities. So, and even when the lockdown was over, we started building playgrounds again, but we knew for a year children will not come back to schools or playgrounds. And it made us question ki kiske liye bana rahe hain hum playground, right? Like, why are we even doing it? We don't want to work for something for that will happen a year after. So we thought if children can't come to playground, let's take play to them. Came up with this idea. We actually came up with some 10 ideas of what we can do, different interventions. We conducted an internal hackathon within the team. And I think this idea was one of the best ideas we thought will work. We actually prototyped a couple of ideas, but and we made sure that we move very fast when we do the pilot. So in the first version, we just bought a few games from the market, and we were not even able to get games at that point in time. The supply chain was so broken. But we bought a few games, distributed some 200 boxes to children, and saw how children were engaged with those games. Some problems we saw when we bought these games was, one, they were very expensive. Second, all of them were made out of plastic. So we thought that this is not something that we would want to do. Let's build our own games. So we ended up building 6 games and 1 activity card in just 1,000 rupees. Whereas we were getting 1 game for 1,000 rupees. So, and these are also the way we've designed these games are, like I mentioned in the beginning, caters to. So we have 1 game which will lead to their physical development. So one of the games we have is a hopscotch mat or a stretch mat, which you can spread inside your house and play on them, which will make sure that you move your body. For younger children, we also have these games for different age groups. So younger children will have a different set of a game. They, I think, more focused on developing their gross motor skills. The sizes of the the blocks that we have is different for different age group. One of the other games we have is domino blocks, which we've seen children using in different ways. They also use it as building blocks, as Lego blocks. And then we have this memory game where there's a puzzle on one side, but also they have to match two cards, which also teaches them in fun ways that we started with the theme of hygiene, but now we've developed more games around um, uh, more games around, say, habits or something that they need to learn as children. We continue to design more and more games. We also conduct play hackathons now, where we get a group of people and conduct a workshop where they design their own games. So we are, just making more champions of Anthill, who can design and build these playgrounds, these games. And yeah, these are some of the things. You can find more details on our website of each of these games that we have. Um, was that your question? How were these selected? How are you reaching how are we reaching the kids? So yes, schools are closed, but since we work with these communities very closely, we go to each house and distribute these boxes. We have worked with we've worked with like around 300 communities across the country, and we also have connected with a lot more communities who are in extreme need of such things. So we've partnered with local NGOs across the country in making sure this solution reaches them. We have reached some from some tribal areas in Sukma and Jharkhand, to Odisha, to rural areas of Bangalore, with these boxes, and we've got some amazing response. Since this was our second product, we obviously applied a lot of learnings that we had from our playground when we started playground project. So we've been the entire feedback and the iteration loop is very, very fast. We've already done 4 iterations of the games that we have, and I think the current box is much, much better than what we had in the first, and it's only been 6 months.
Mahima, can you ask a second question about the impact assessment?
Yeah, so you had also mentioned about the impact assessment that you do. First, sorry, thank you for answering the first part of the question. Just had a question regarding the impact assessment. So what are the different metrics that you use for the impact assessment, and what kind of data do you essentially look at while doing this impact assessment, and what is the most beneficial or the kind of data that you rely on, and what do you do from there?
Sure. I think that's a great question, and something that I did not really ask myself for almost a year since I started the organization, right? In the beginning, it was all about just believing in it and just doing more things. But in a year's time, I started questioning that we're building these playgrounds, but what's happening, right? Like, what is the benefit that children are actually happening? There's definitely a lot of research around the importance of play, but are our playgrounds creating that change and benefiting children or not? So I think we first started impact measurement for ourselves, and not say for a funder or anyone else. And we've been collecting feedback from our second year in all of the playgrounds. So some of the important metrics for us is so how impact measurement is done in like 3 ways. There's a quantitative measurement where you basically assess things like, has the attendance rate improved in the classes? Has the admission rates gone up because of these? So this will be very quantifiable, a number or a percentage that we might be able to collect. And this is easier as compared to other things to assess. And you see a direct, right? Like you see there's a graph which is going up or down, and then you can make those iterations if it's not working and improve upon it. So those are some of the metrics that we measure in that space. And then there is this qualitative impact measurement where we interact with every sort of child, parent, teacher, different stakeholders, and ask them subjective questions, let them express themselves as to how they feel this has created a change in, say, if it's a parent, what change have they seen in their child. And this is something which actually like gives us some surprising things, like something that we've not even thought of, gives us some new data points. One of the examples I'll give you is in one of the schools, the teacher told us that there was this child who was creating a lot of nuisance in the class, and instead of giving a punishment, the teacher basically asked the child to go up and down in a playground climber and come back. So the child came back and was sitting quietly after that because he was exhausted and stopped disturbing the class. So I think that was super innovative and the kind of things that you will not be able to measure if you only go for quantifiable data in the impact measurement. So this basically gives us new opportunities as to how post we got such feedback, we started sharing these with different teachers as well, and see how they can benefit from it. The third is the systemic change that we're trying to do. So we go back to our theory of change and see what is the North Star, or what is the final impact that we're trying to achieve by this organization or this initiative. And then we look at what outcomes are required to reach that impact, and basically working backwards. So looking at more of what mindset change have happened, how have we been able to, say, influence policies at the center, or work with the government, talk about the initiative we are doing, the awareness programs that we do. So those are like the three verticals we can get. I mean, deeper into what exactly details do we collect, but this is largely, I think, how we have taken the thought process. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to know, like, just a follow-up question. Have you started working with the government? Are there any ties with the government to like support this initiative?
So yes, I mean, from, say, access point of view, since we've been working in public spaces as well, we have been working with BBMP in Bangalore and Karnataka government, but we had not received funding from the government per se. But last year we worked with Odisha government and Andhra government, where the government is also funding these programs. So we have done pilots with both of these government authorities, and started work on, say, a larger program where we will be working with them. Also connected and in initial stages of conversation with some other government, some other state governments as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahima.
Our next question is from Usha. She's also a student. She's a student for the UMass program. So it's in collaboration with the University of Massachusetts. And she has a question here. If you want to ask yourself, Usha, you can unmute, or I can proceed asking it on your behalf.
Chitranjali, could you please ask it, because it's very noisy in the background. There's a lot of background noise.
Her question is, what did your first pitch look like when you applied to the incubator at IMB? Were you always sure that Anthill was going to remain a social enterprise?
So just like, Usha, if you could elaborate on your second question, what do you mean by it will remain a social enterprise?
Usually what I've seen is that I think people take up social work, or people do things, or when they talk about sustainability, it's about each project, right? And you operate on a bigger level or a bigger scale. So were you always sure that you were going to remain like this? When you started out, you did one playground, and then that became bigger.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So I'll take that. I think these are two questions. I'll take the first question first, where you're basically asking what our first pitch looked like. I think our pitch was super perfect from day one, to be honest. People used to give examples that you should see Anthill's pitches. I think also coming from a designer background, our slides looked really nice, and the kind of work that we have, pictures speak louder than words for us. So you see a child playing and you know what we do, right? Like, don't have to really explain much post that. So I think pitch was always perfect. What clarity we got over years is getting deeper into the problem, understanding it much more in a much more way, working with different communities, different geographies. The kind of understanding that we have now is, of course, very different from when we started out. Some of the mentors that we got, say, as part of our Bangalore incubator and the Encore incubator that we were a part of, helped us refine our pitches or make, I would say, better video presentations. But I think the larger learning that we got was by working in various geographies that we have worked in. Were you always sure that Anthill will remain a social enterprise? So when I quit my job and took this venture full time, there were obviously a lot of resistance from my family, from a lot of people that I admire, from my seniors in college, right? Like, they made me question that, why are you doing this? And a lot of people saying, why are you spoiling your career? And it made me really question what I want to do with my life. And I was very sure that in the long term, I want to work in the impact space. I didn't even know it's called a development sector at that point in time, but I knew that I love working with children. This is closest to what my ikigai is, right? Like, something that I enjoy doing, comes very naturally to me, I'm good at, and it is definitely creating a world a better place to live in. So I felt it was a problem that needed to be solved. It was what made me quit my job was the fact that this is what I wanted to see in the long term. So I wasn't thinking ki 1 year or 5 years. Even now, a lot of people ask ki, will you exit the ecosystem? I don't think I've ever thought of things like that, right? You see a problem and you try to solve it. And I feel there is enough money in the world if you have great ideas and great solutions. And if you continue to create value and solve real problems, and I think success will follow you. There will be more people who will join you. And I have been amazed and surprised by the amount of support I have got in the last 4 years. And I think there are a lot of nice people in this world. And sometimes, like, I had to question them that, why are you even helping Anthill? And they said that because we want to help those little kids that we can do through you. So yes, I don't think I restrict Anthill to being, say, a non-profit or a for-profit enterprise. Those are just legal entities. There's a bigger problem that we are seeing. We don't say that we will work only for underprivileged children, but the need is highest there, right? So a same playground that you've built for a government school, you see the amount of happiness and the value, how valuable it is. Private schools at least have some sort of a playground. So that is what our larger focus has been. And yeah, I think we will continue to come up with more products, bring playful learning to children, because I think that is a more natural way of learning for children. So we've already come up with a second product, and innovation is something that's key to our organization. I think the only way to be ahead of your competitors is keep innovating, keep moving ahead. And that's something very core to our team and the way we work.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much. That was very candid and helpful, actually. Thank you.
Sure.
The next question we have here on the chat is by Dr. Sheetal Mundra. She is a faculty at J.K. Lakshmipati University, and she is an economist and an entrepreneurship educator. and she's closely associated with startup initiatives and developing entrepreneurship ecosystem for students. So her question is around the book that you've written on women entrepreneurship. So she's trying to connect like how your venture now, Anthill Creations, is having an impact on the lives of women. What do you think is the direct or indirect impact that you think is having on their lives?
Right. Actually, you guys are like asking some really new questions, which I've not thought of before. So I'm not very sure if it's really changing lives of women in general, but I can maybe share some example stories of what I can think, what's coming to my mind. So even like I think last month, one of our team members who's almost my age, right? Like she said that on one of her stand-ups, she just candidly said that, Pooja, it's so inspiring to be working in an organization which is led by a woman and almost the same age where my parents are constantly telling me to get married. I can see someone, you know, who's created this beautiful enterprise and changing so many children's lives. So just hearing from somebody who's so close, right, it was very motivating, and it made me, suddenly made me realize that everything that I'm doing has the power to inspire so many people as well. I remember some of my juniors from college saying कि पूजा आपको देख के ऐसा लगता है कि social entrepreneurship भी career path हो सकता है. So when I started this, I honestly had not seen anyone from my college or anyone from IIT, doing a social enterprise. There are many, but I wasn't aware of them. So I think just seeing examples that this can be done. When you run a social enterprise, this doesn't mean that you're not paying yourself or you're sacrificing everything in life. It's just that you keep the impact before money. And I think we all reach at some point in our lives, I think we all reach that stage where we say, okay, enough money to earn. Now we want to create a difference in the world. So I feel, why not from day one, right? Like in whatever capacity, as a volunteer, or in whatever capacity is possible for individuals. This is what I think gives me happiness, and I do it. So yes, I think that way I've seen a lot of sort of women, or say my juniors and colleagues, also taking up risks and starting out. The kind of work that we do, I remember the first few playgrounds we were building, nobody had seen a woman in a tire shop or that entire scrap market. And me and my co-founder, we were two girls buying these tires, and they would ask that, why are you doing this? A lot of people said that it's unsafe for children. Sorry, it's unsafe for you to be on the ground, on the field, working in these remote geographies. But we found solutions to those things. And since we did it ourselves, today, even our team has like 50% women, and we don't differentiate whether we're sending a guy to a project or a girl, ensuring the safety and everything that's required out of it. So I think those are small ways how we're doing it. But what we also want to do is, when we work with communities, we want more women to be becoming champions in those communities. It's very hard to do that, honestly. And the remoter we go in the geography, it's much harder. But yes, we are trying in our small ways.
Okay. So this reminds me of one thing that you've said, or I read about your organization earlier. Basically, when you were working, you've built playgrounds in both urban and rural areas. And you mentioned that you've seen a divide in the kind of playgrounds that are desired by children in these two, different landscapes. So have you also seen a sort of like a gender or a class divide on playgrounds? Because especially gender divide, which is very prominent in outdoor games or outdoor play areas. So what are your thoughts on this? What has been your experience on ground with these two?
Yeah, actually a lot. And every time I see that, it's so disturbing. And I would be lying if I say that I've solved that problem. Not just, I think, when we work, so we worked with some of the refugee communities. We worked with Rohingya communities who are basically migrants from Myanmar who came to India and are settled. And the kind of trauma that these children have seen in their lives, right? And when I first went to that community, I saw these children pushing each other, and that was so natural for them. And it was the girls were not talking to guys. So when we were conducting this session that we talked about, where we play games, girls were like so far away from boys, and we had to, in fact, like, the girls didn't even come in the first place. We had to ask the community leader to bring all children of the communities, because we wanted to interact with all of them. And when we wanted them to play with each other, it was it took us some time before that could happen. So there was absolutely it was very surprising. So even when we started building playgrounds in community spaces and public parks, um, the kids from the society didn't want to play with children from slum communities. They said, this is a playground for poor people and this is a playground for us. And we really didn't know what we can do to bring that change. And I think, of course, it comes from parents, and there is a larger change that needs to be done, where a world where we can see children from all classes, all genders playing together. I've seen younger children not having those biases. They don't differentiate, and especially when they're playing, right? Like, they don't differentiate whether the child is what the gender or the class or the color of that child is. We've seen, like, children being very empathetic to disabled children, very in fact very surprising, right? Like, in all the ads I see, how children are making fun of them. But what my experience on the ground has been, how supportive they are of even if there's a single child who has a certain disability. And I think children do not differentiate on those bases. We as adults put it in their minds and make them like us in the future. I think playground is a very good solution, where we can remove these biases and, create a safe space for children to be themselves. But we are really far away from creating that truly inclusive playgrounds and truly inclusive world.
Anyone else has a question for Pooja before we wrap this session up?
So maybe a last question from my end. Hello, Pooja. I'm Upasna. I'm teaching organizational behavior more into social science domain. So my question, happy to know, because even I am alumni of IIT Kharagpur, and looking into your thought of using these scraps to build the playground. It reminded me of the veggies which were there at center of our hostels, and of the favorite hangouts for all students, and a lot of tires were used even at veggies to make a good sitting platform for students. So I really congratulate you for this initiative and the kind of work you have done. But apart from that, I would just like to, I'm just curious about that. Creating playground, is it that all, by which you can ensure that students, I mean, the kids are coming to the playground? There's long, a lot of things beyond that, because I see, maintenance is a big challenge many a time. So you have created something, but over the period of time, things might not be same. So do you also take care of maintenance, and what about the safety of the
Sure.
kids?
Thank you, Pasna. First of all, it's so great to just meet someone from the same college. But also, yes, I think those are very important questions. So in the initial days, we built these playgrounds and we handed it over to the community. very soon we realized the problem of maintenance. We've seen vandalism in many of these places. So yes, we do take care of the maintenance of these playgrounds for at least 1 year. And in that 1 year, basically, we try to transfer that ownership to the community champion that we identify in the community. And even post that, we remain in touch with the particular college, with a particular sort of a playground leader to ensure that the playground is in good shape. And these are low maintenance playgrounds. So the way we've designed is this is not one huge structure, and if a small part is broken, you have to replace the entire thing. It's built by local people, it's built with local materials. So it's very easy to sort of replace if there is a wear and tear in the playground. Also, the kind of material we use, right? We don't use plastic, we use metal cable drums and tires. So the only thing which needs to be checked are the joineries, and we ensure we're using highest quality of the joineries for the quality of the playgrounds. Safety, you mentioned. So when we are working with children, safety becomes the topmost thing. Because you don't want any of the child getting hurt because, say, of a wrong design or a wrong construction. So we do follow, even though there are not strict rules in India, but we do follow international safety standards of play. So based on a different age groups, what height a particular, say, a platform should be, or how much gap should be there, so that the child doesn't stick their head or their hand in a particular play element. So we do maintain all of those standards in the quality of the playgrounds. And especially in the new designs that we do regular checks to ensure that it's safe for children, and then only we replicate it in other places. Yes, so that's how, like, the safety and the quality, from a quality perspective, we have quality checks at various points, right from procurement of material to the final execution. We do have like quality checks, one which is done by our quality team, and then we have a quality check that the headmaster and then the client also does, and that's when we sort of complete the playground.
Great, thank you, Pooja. I think a lot of good wishes to you and your organization. Hope it really create a social impact.
Thank
And
you.
bring back children's back to playground. Thank you.
Anyone else has a question for Pooja here?
Chitranjali, I don't want to ask now more questions. I really want to appreciate her work, because I've never come across with such an idea, even when we are teaching entrepreneurship, that in this area also, like, a lot of work can be done. So I really appreciate your work, and, the way you have, even during the COVID, you have, changed your, basically work, or just work on a new business model for the children. It's really appreciated. So I really impressed and inspired by you, Pooja.
Thank you so much. And in fact, like, one of the things that, so I read I feel I started my journey very early in my career. So one of the ways how I constantly, one of the ways how I keep learning is by reading a lot of books. And one of the things that I've seen that is sort of like told in most of these books is that as entrepreneurs, you should be flexible. If there is a need of something and you're very rigid about nahi mera to yahi idea hai, so it might not really work. So, but of course, like, remaining true to the core vision and that we have, I think we should adapt to the market as the need is. And today I think a lot of people, when they think of entrepreneurship and startup, they directly jump to solutions that I want to build an app for this, whereas not spending enough time with the problem and with the users. So I think that helps us even today, like just remaining close to the communities and the users that we have, that the solutions we are creating are actually helping them.
Yeah, that's true, really true. Thank you, Pooja.
Pooja, so just a closing, what is your advice for somebody who wants to pursue a career as a social entrepreneur? I've heard your TED Talks so many times, so I know you have those 1-2 pointers to, for somebody who is looking forward for a career in this field. So would like to hear from you again.
Sure. I think when anyone says advice, I go blank. But I'll tell you what my learning has been and see if it applies for you as well when you're starting out. So two things, right? Like one is when you're thinking of doing a startup, you end up thinking a lot. Like I have a lot of my friends, I think, who were a lot more motivated than me, but they ended up thinking so much and did not have that uh, that one point where they could just do it. So I think you're never 100% sure, right? Like you've never done enough market validation, and even after all of that, you learn a lot of things on the way. So just having that courage to just take that plunge, ask yourself if you really want to do it, because in life, I think, right, you will not regret doing anything. I think most of the things that we regret in life is not doing things. So I think that is my first sort of learning that I've had, and why I'm able to do what I'm doing today is because I could just take that plunge. Second is, I think, mm, uh, second thing that I've actually, a lot of my mentors have told me is ask for help. Many a time, because if you've not asked for help, it's as good as not, like, if you'll not get help, right? Like, but at least when you ask for it, you will be surprised by the people who will help you. I think we're all very hesitant of reaching out to people. So of course it took me some time before I could do that, before I could reach out to, say, mentors or people when I needed support, when I'm struggling with problems. And trust me, there are amazing people in the world who will come forward to help you in your initiative. And yeah, I hope that helps the people in the...
Yeah, thank you, Pooja. And I'm sure your talk and your experience has inspired some of us in this session today, at least. And before we close this session, this is, as I mentioned, this is one of the first talks we have had in for, as a part of the Center for Policy Studies. So, and my aim is to let students listen to people like you, who are like one of us, and who are not like super experienced people, like 20-50 years. And then it's very difficult for somebody who wants to enter into the field to relate to. That's what my experience has been, like somebody who I can very candidly talk to and ask my questions is what I had in mind when I designed these impact series. Just wanted to tell you about an experiential learning opportunity that we are sort of trying to introduce for the students, especially who are taking courses in policy and economics, which basically in which we work with clients like you, people who are working in the impact space. And the students directly work with you over a period of 1 year. And right from designing, like right from problem identification to designing the flow of the project, and then finally delivering some, implementable solutions. I wish we could just go on ground, work, observe, and publish reports. But COVID, I don't know how long will this situation be that people are not. Everybody is attending online, so right now the situation is very difficult. But my aim is that before in this 1 year, we get the students on ground, observe in real life what are the changes happening, and sort of publishing something or coming out with a report that can be used by organizations to take some decisions in future. So yeah, we would in future also, if you have anything in mind, and now that you know about the students who are willing and who have such great questions for you today, if there's some opportunity which your organization has and would like to collaborate with the students at our university, you just let me know.
That would be really great, Chitranjali. And I feel like, I mean, you'll get a lot of gyan in these, like the whatever I talked in 1 hour. But honestly, I think you'll learn 100 times better if you just visit one of the playground constructions and actually talk to the communities and the team of how it's happening.
I remember I asked you in the beginning if you're planning to come to Rajasthan, like planning to set up a playground in Rajasthan, but then this COVID situation is just getting extended. So my plan was to actually get a project, you know, for somebody here to work with the organization directly and get some, you know, real outputs in terms of their course. So, but let's see if we can collaborate in future based on what the situation is.
We are actually building one playground in Rajasthan in January. It's
Okay.
not Jaipur, but I'll keep you posted.
Definitely, yeah.
It would be amazing if we can
Yeah.
make this happen.
There are different courses actually in which students visit and write their experiences of what goes on grassroots level organizations. So we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for talking to us. And we look forward to having you again at our center.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the entire conversation. Thank you, guys.
And I would like to thank the audience also who took out this time to, you know, be a part of this discussion. And we hope that this in some way or the other motivates or inspires you to have an impact on the lives of others around you. So thank you everyone for attending this talk, and I look forward to having you in the next session. Bye.